Hi everybody, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. Little bit of a bittersweet day today. So I'm just going to tell you a wee bit of a story, full disclosure and all. Today, of course, is the start of Final Fantasy XIV Fan Fest in Gay Paris. What a beautiful city it is. And I was invited as a guest to go over there to the Fan Fest and to be able to also ask my questions to the team. And it would have been an amazing experience, an experience I would have absolutely loved. However, there is one thing which will always take precedence over that, and one thing I love more in life than gaming, and that is my family. And if any of you watched my videos over the Christmas period, I did a three-part series where I introduced my mother to the World of Warcraft for the very first time. My mother, who's not a gamer, doesn't understand the internet hardly, can barely use her phone. Beautiful, beautiful, funny things. And she's 75 years old. Well, 74 years, 320 something days at the time of recording. And her birthday's in just a few days' time, where she will turn 75. And I had actually arranged to go down and see her this last week. So I wouldn't have actually been back in time to have gone over to Paris to the Fan Fest. So I graciously declined the offer, but said, if circumstances in the future are different, then sure, I'd love another opportunity. However, unfortunately, my mother got taken into hospital, and so we had to rearrange our plans for this week just gone at the last minute. Now, don't worry, she's fine. She's absolutely fine. But it did curtail plans. So ultimately, I didn't get to see my mother when I wanted to, and I didn't get to go to the Fan Fest either. So, like I said, bittersweet, but it's sweet because everything's okay from the family front, and I can still always watch it, on Twitch and stuff. But it would have been an awesome experience to have been there. Now, before I go into the specifics of what was actually mentioned at the keynote speech, and there is some recap with a little bit more information, and there is some brand new stuff as well. It's just a few things that I want to say about the way that the keynote speech was actually delivered. And to me, it couldn't have been any more perfect. Does that mean it was a perfect keynote speech? No. And that was the beauty of it. You see, one thing about these fan fests is I find them to be really quite raw. They're not overproduced. And I think overproduction is a little bit of a problem. It causes a huge piece of separation between the audience and the producer, developers, publishers, etc. And in a lot of cases, kind of makes them look down on you. And I never feel that with the Final Fantasy Fan Fests. When Yoshi P comes up on stage, he talks for an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes, walking up and down, stretching his legs, grabbing some water here and there, missing the clicker from bits and pieces, fluffing stuff. And it's just so brilliant. It's just, you feel connected. You feel that this is a person who is truly grounded in his work and truly loves his work. And I absolutely adore the way that he will come out dressed up in the garb of whichever new job is going to be released, or, wearing something that is a hint about a race or another job, class, whatever, that could come at a later date. And it's his genuineness that comes through. And it's the genuineness of everybody who comes up on stage which really resonates with me. It doesn't feel as if these people are bored. It doesn't feel as if these people don't like their job. It feels as if these people love what they do. And I mean love. The passion literally drips off them. The banter between the groups is great without being fake or phony. Banter only occurs when it should. When something organic happens that causes it. And it's just one of those occasions where I watch the Final Fantasy Fan Fest and I'm just beaming, absolutely beaming from cheek to cheek. And on top of that, when they release a snippet of information or they put up a cutscene, and what we've seen in the last couple of expansions is they release part of the FMV and then later on at the other fan fest, because they do 3 fan fests, they'll add something to the FMV. And when you watch it first of all at the first fan fest and you get the reaction, and then you watch it at the second fan fest and something else has been added, and then you watch it in its entirety in the third fan fest, one thing that I always imagine is they are really kind of like waiting to see the response from the new bits that were added. So when the new piece were added to this FMV, this cinematic sequence for Shadowbringers, and the way that the crowd was popping, you really got that sense that backstage they were just like, yes, awesome, they really like it. They were so... you felt as if they were legitimately concerned about how it would be perceived, what the response would be. What I'm trying to say is it feels so authentic. They really feel truly genuine, love their work, and authentic people doing something that they absolutely love. So with all of that said, and all that fangirling out, and I'm quite happy to do so because it's a game that I really love, and it's made by people who I really respect. Okay, so what they announced officially was the Gunbreaker class. The Gunbreaker class, which uses the gun blade as its weapon. Now, we saw in the cinematic in the first fan festival in Las Vegas, I believe it was, that Thancred on his back had a gun blade. I saw that. I was keen-eyed. I saw that. And it was expanded upon in the opening cinematic. And then they went into the class itself. Now, they did stress, though, that there's multiple classes coming in the next expansion. And when the final Fan Fest arrives in Tokyo at the end of March, they're going to announce the new class, which I will speculate on momentarily. Now, the Gunbreaker class, what is going to please a lot of the fan base, is going to be a tank class. This is something that people have been desperate for. More tanks in the game. This, I think, makes 4 tanks. Paladin, Warrior, Dark Knight, and I think now Gunbreaker, not Gunblade, Gunbreaker. And it looks fun to play. The actual way that it's structured is like Final Fantasy VIII, and not like how the Gunblades work in Final Fantasy XIV, ironically enough, which is where you can point the gun and shoot. Whereas in Final Fantasy VIII, Squall's Gunblade, he was kind of like used in conjunction with being a sword. So I think I'm going back a long time in my brain, and believe me, it is a long time in this brain. But I believe that when you attacked with Squall in Final Fantasy VIII, did you hit the right buffer button or the right trigger when he went to the hit, and that would activate the ammo in the Gunblade, and you would do additional damage? Well, the class kind of works like that. Not that you have to hit a button when you're attacking, but you're using the ammo in the Gunblade itself to enhance your abilities as a tank. It looked like there was one where it put like a barrier, like a protective shield over you, and things like that, as well as lots of slashing and lots of damage. So it looks like quite a dynamic, as to be honest with you, all the tank classes really are in Final Fantasy. But it looks like it could be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm going to try it out, because my character is currently dressed up as Squall from Final Fantasy VIII. And if you, just an FYI, pre-order the Collector's Edition, one of the in-game items that you get in the Collector's Edition is actually Squall's Gunblade. Oh! So I could go full unoriginal character. in Final Fantasy XIV if I wanted to. And it's due currently to start at level 60. That's a tentative. They might tweak that. They might change that. But it's due currently to start at level 60. Again, one thing that I will jump in is another item that you get, an in-game item that you get with all the editions, Standard Edition and Collector's Edition, is actually going to be a set of Aetheryte earrings, which look really pretty. But what's going to happen with those earrings is they're actually going to add 30% experience up to level 70. And also, they will have stats that will scale to your job and level. So you can use it from level 1 all the way through to level 70, depending on what class you're leveling up. But you could utilize them straight away for the Gunbreaker, is what I'm trying to say, and smash through 60 to 70, a little bit quicker to get you in the game. So that is the class that we know about. Right, now I'm going to go to a couple of the areas which they showed off. I'm going to refer into my notes because it's new names, of course. Now, the first one was called the Raktika Greatwood. Kind of looks like Murkmire in The Elder Scrolls Online, which I'm very happy with because I love Murkmire. I think Murkmire looks absolutely fantastic. And so it's kind of like a mixture of Murkmire and the Shroud areas that are around Gridania. And so I really did kind of gravitate towards that aesthetic. It looks like a really interesting zone to be in. But what I will say is, they played the zonal music alongside it as well, which, believe it or not, hadn't actually got the thumbs up from Yoshi P to be in the full version of the game. And so the composer was a little bit tentative. But, oh my god, it was staggeringly good. Now, games like World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, they have phenomenal music. Absolutely phenomenal music. And it often goes unnoticed because it sits in the background and it just, mellows you out as you're doing what you're doing. Obviously, there are key pieces of music which do prick up your ears. But as soon as this piece started playing, you were just like, oh man, this is great. This is absolutely wonderful. So that was kind of like one thing which really did blow me away. And then after the keynote speech, when they all came up on stage to introduce themselves, he did say that it hasn't been, green lit for the full version. And Yoshi P was just like, no, it's in. She was like, yay! I don't have to start from scratch again and do another piece. So it actually got green lit there on stage. But my God, there's You talk about, the way that classes look, the way that zones look, that spells look, and all this kind of stuff. But there's just those times where the music just captivates you, absolutely grabs you by the grabby bits. And this was one of those occasions. So just one of the most beautiful pieces of in-game music I've heard. So if you check out the keynote speech, get ready for that because it's beautiful. And if you did watch it, let me know what you thought of it in the comment section, because to me, it grabbed me immediately. Did it grab you immediately? And then there's also another zone that they showed off, which was just gorgeous again. And it's called Il Meg, not The Meg, with Jason Statham, Il Meg. And this is the realm of the Pixies. Now, that might sound a little bit to some people, but it looked absolutely superb. It really did look fantastic. And on top of that, they showed off some of the imagery for the Pixies themselves, which are going to be another beast tribe. They're not going to be they're going to be mischievous, but apparently not as mischievous as the Moogles. But still mischievous nonetheless. And it was then that they also made, because when there's a beast tribe, there's a primal. They also made the announcement of a new primal, which was Titania. Midsummer Night's Dream, anybody? But Titania, Queen of the Pixies, and what was really interesting is the primal model was just, like a very feminine figure. So that was quite interesting, because primals normally tend to be, quite aggressive beasts or have some sort of perversion to them. Not perversion as in sexual perversion, but just some sort of perversion to them. But this was just like a beautiful queen of the Pixies. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that fits into the game as well. Now, the next piece is going into not major, but very, very minor spoiler territory. So if you don't want to know, probably just scooch on a little bit. But in terms, and this is more related to people who actually play the game. So if you listen to this video on the pretext of hopefully getting talked into Final Fantasy XIV, this might not mean anything to you anyway. But what we did see was some quite interesting changes in terms of the class. Now, we already know that Thancred was carrying the Gunblade, and I believe Thancred used to be a ninja, so he's now job changed to Gunbreaker, as we saw. Uragranja, that's how I pronounce it anyway. I'm sure it'd be pronounced differently for other people. He has changed to an astrologian, which is interesting. And then Y'shtola seems to have job changed now to a black mage. But the slight little spoiler bit here is the little girl that Thancred is holding hands and running with in the cinematic is Minfilia. And every character looked younger. So is there some sort of back in time element here? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Or maybe it was just the way that the character models have been designed for this expansion. But yeah, Minfilia was the little girl. So it's really interesting to see Minfilia back. If you're a Final Fantasy XIV, you'll know what I'm relating to. If you're not a Final Fantasy XIV player at the moment, I won't give you any spoilers, but very interesting to see Minfilia back as a little girl. So we'll see where that storyline leads also. Now, they reaffirmed that there's going to be 9 dungeons available at launch, and that Yoshi P had actually just finished testing them all himself. Cool. A developer that actually plays his own game. And then, on top of that, what was more interesting to me was actually the Alliance Raid. Now, the Alliance Raid is a raid where 3 groups of 8, and they work in their separate groups, and, moments they do work together. But for the most part, they work in their separate groups to overcome a raid environment. 2 tanks, 2 healers, 4 DPS in each of the 3 groups itself. And I like that. And the one that is currently in Final Fantasy Stormblood is the Return to Ivalice, which is the setting for Final Fantasy XII. Hands going everywhere. And I really like the fact that they just take risks. It's one thing that I always praise Final Fantasy XIV about. No matter what they do, what patch that comes out, yeah, it'll have kind of standard stuff like further storyline, maybe additional dungeons, but there'll always be a piece of content which is completely different. They always test and try different things. They want to give players diversity and choice in their content. They understand that just doing the same stuff over and over is boring. Are you listening, Blizzard? Okay. It's boring stuff. And so most of the time I'd say it actually works. Some of the time it doesn't. But you can't knock them for wanting to try different things. And I like this whole concept of the merger of universes with the Alliance raids. I think it just fits. So you've got Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy XII in this instance coming together. But what is very exciting is what is going to happen in the next expansion for the Alliance raid. Because they've now got a couple of additional guest developers, creators for the new Alliance raid. Yosuke Saito and Yoko Taro. And they both worked on Nier Automata, which came out to major critical and player acclaim alike. It's a game which is now utterly beloved for its universe, its gameplay, its story. These guys are coming on and they are going to create the new Alliance raid for Shadowbringers, and it's going to be called Yora Dark Apocalypse and will be set in the Nier Automata universe. So this is wonderful stuff. And what was even better is the 2 creators were shown on screen. They did a video interview together, and the banter was just unreal. They were just joking like, we kind of finished stuff in Nier Automata. Why are we going back? Why on earth is Final Fantasy XIV coming over? Oh my goodness, we're going to destroy the franchise. And it was all done really light-heartedly. Great banter with Yoshi P. Yoshi P apparently is best friends with these guys, so this was just like perfect. And what I was talking about earlier about the way that everybody seemed to be enjoying themselves and working, just knitting so well and authentically on stage. This whole banter process on the screen was just awesome. I was laughing my way all through it. Very excited about where it's going to lead, especially when you've got these quality creators for Nier Automata. So, yeah, that in itself is very, very exciting. And finally, that leads us on to Viera confirmed. Confirmed as a playable race. And if I heard everything correctly, I do believe Yoshi P said that this is most likely the final playable race in Final Fantasy XIV. Now that's interesting in itself, because do they have an end goal for this game in sight almost? Do they have an end goal for Final Fantasy XIV, and maybe Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 17 might be, I'm talking years in the future here. I'm not talking like next year or 2020. Well, next year is 2020. You know what I mean. Maybe they've already got their eye set on where the next online or potential online game could go. But that bit is just utter speculation. It could just be that just like, no, we're going to continue the game on, but race-wise, we don't really want to add any more. They are kind of brutally honest about this sort of thing. If they don't want to do something, they say, look, we just don't think it works in this environment, in this role, in this game, or whatever. So we're not even thinking about bringing it in. And it, kind of like puts not players in their place, but it just like doesn't give them false hope, and it doesn't lead them on. It's just like, yeah, nah. And if they have an open mind about certain things, they'll say, who knows? Maybe we'll see. So yeah, Viera coming in. I said that I was going to speculate about the additional job that's coming in. With the Viera coming in, I'm hearing Dancer. I'm hearing people are playing with the job of Dancer, which could be really intriguing, because how do you see them? Healer? Support? Where do you see Dancer coming in? Kind of like almost like a scholar in their role of maybe switching between buff and damage and healing. It's intriguing if that would be the case, but Dancer would be an interesting one for show. And there were other people that were hoping Judge would come in as a playable job too. But we'll find out. 23rd of March in Tokyo. Where the final Fantasy Fan Fest will be. I didn't think that one through, did I? So all in all, just to kind of like sum up, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It seemed to come across by people who love the product, love the game, and love the fans. It didn't come across as disingenuous. It didn't come across as they were bored. They came across as if they were full and dripping of passion for their game. And, I'm not trying to bring another game up to put another game down, but it's kind of like the complete flip reverse of what I see at Blizzard. I see bored people working on a game they couldn't care about, where they don't give a shite about the content that they're producing, and this is a complete 180. This is just like the passion personified, not just with what they're producing, but who they're producing it for. It really rubs off. It's very infectious. It just makes me love the product even more and love them even more for what they try. And so when you do try and fail, you can easily forgive because they tried something. But like I said, more often than not, I do believe they actually succeed. Release date, July the 2nd of this year for full release. Early access, if you pre-order, June 28th. So just a few days before. Those are tentative dates, not absolutely locked in stone in terms of early access at least. But yeah, 2nd of July, release date. So this is going to be a very intriguing summer. June, we've got Elder Scrolls Online Elsewhere. July, we've got Shadowbringers, and then sometime in summer, we've got Classic WoW, but it all depends really on how much damage or further potential damage there is to the WoW franchise by that time, because it is a fractured game right now. So yeah, great stuff. Yoshi P, I bow down to you. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Very excited now for this expansion, and you can start pre-ordering it from the 6th of February. Just 4 days, 3 or 4 days time. Some countries is going to be the 7th of February. So I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Links there in the description box down below. And I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care. Bye for now.